What's up, man?
I love that music. Just makes me so calm. I like it. I get lost
Pretty
in
calm,
it,
huh?
and then I'm like, oh, it's time to start.
What's it? It's
So
time.
calm.
We're
What's
live.
up? What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
Man, I'm gonna be all right. How are you?
It was a weird week for me too. I had a lot of stuff around here to do, and half of my family is at summer camp. We're in the middle of summer, and they're all at summer camp.
Yeah, I got a daughter that's a counselor this year, and she's having a tough time. The kids are like not great. She's got a staff member's kid in her cabin, and the staff members' kids are always the worst, man, because they think they run the place, you know? So
Yeah, they're like the unpaid unpaid workers.
dude, she's getting just a ton of lip, and she's just like, she's like, it's turning all the other kids against me. I'm like, okay, man, you got to figure it out. So,
Yeah, they all love her.
well, y'all are getting ready to go to Nashville tomorrow, yeah?
We are so excited to be in Nashville.
Pretty exciting, man. That's a cool event. You're doing 6 rooms of live broadcast over 3 days, a general session, interdispersed, and gosh, it's like, what is it? Almost 10,000 people at that event, and then I don't know how many tens of thousands online. It's a big one. That's an exciting one.
It's so huge. It's really fun. The people, I mean, it's a really cool conference too. It's all about white collar crime.
But dude, white collar crime. Do you get nervous in that general session when you and Brandon are broadcasting from the GS? I never go in there because I'm so nervous. I just let y'all go, and I stand back and watch the servers.
I do not get nervous.
I get nervous about that one.
I get nervous beforehand. You know,
did you get nervous when you guys had, like, when we were doing full hybrid from those rooms and you were bringing in people remote? Like, that freaked me out. I mean, I know we know the technology really well and it's tested, but it's different when there's 5,000 people in a room and you have a virtual keynote and then you've got a full broadcast. Like, it's big. It's not like a 300 person conference, you know?
I think I have like a really great goldfish brain where I kind of just forget what's actually happening and you really focus on what's at hand. So I'm like, oh,
to me, it was always like, that one is so crazy because it's like you're in the middle of just these sessions, you know, small room sessions, and you're doing a bunch of them. And it's like, okay, now let's go do a massive live broadcast for an hour. And then we'll do another one a little bit later in the day. It's like, to shift gears like that, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And also, like, it's funny taking because there's a broadcast team in the room and you're taking their feed and then you're bringing in other cameras to show the audience so that the online viewers can kind of feel what it's like to be in the room.
Yeah.
So it's a cool technical challenge.
I like that. Yeah, because we interface with, there's a company called LMG. I think they're out of Nashville actually, but they travel with us on that gig. And they manage all of the AV. So it's one of those rare instances where we're not managing everything. We're just there for the broadcast. So it's always funny to me too. I just did a little mini on this where, like, the gear differential, you know, like the stuff that, like, their video guys are, you know, they're high up there. Like they do big shows, but they use the stuff that they like. And so, like, your frame rates may not match up and they're using something a little bit different that they're sending you from the projectors, and like all that stuff you have to figure out ahead of time with them, you know, and they're just like, hey, they're just worried about the projectors. They don't care what you're trying to do. That to me is always
they use projectors there.
They have huge ones. I think they were stacking, 4 projectors per, plus they've got video delays in the room on those big projectors. And so, like, those guys they're not going to change, their interlaced or progressive signal for
each of us have, like, very mission critical assignments.
Yeah.
And both teams feel like they're the most important.
I think that's why we ended up getting the roving cams this year and last year, the wireless stuff. Because it was just like, for them to do it, it didn't make sense. And so we just tacked that on for us, which I don't know if they even take any of that for iMag. But anyway,
they do not.
Nobody cares about this but us. It's going to be a fun week. I'm excited for you guys. So what's up? We're going to talk about some stuff that's happened. This has been crazy.
Let's recap June.
We haven't done a weekly update in a long time.
We have not.
Yeah.
It's been too busy.
So we should do some lessons learned from this past month. And I think a lot of this comes back to, and then let's get into some events specific stuff, like forward looking.
Okay.
But we had a lot. I mean, the last couple of weeks we had two of our main guys out, and then we had just massive overlaps with multiple events all over the place, and it was crazy. And I think the first big takeaway I have from this month, and just in general, and it goes back to things we talk about a lot, is the need for like really thorough testing. We had an overlap the week of the 4th, and internet was out at both venues. Internet tested good the night before at both venues, right? And
I was there.
Yeah, you were at one of them.
Yeah.
And we were
both events.
Assured everything was great. Like, hey, it's fine. Everything's done. You're whitelisted. Like, you can do whatever you need to do. And both venues went down, which in 20 years of doing this, I've never had that happen at two separate places. So
yeah,
we had to push to LTE backups while working with the venues to try and get back online, and actually didn't get either venue back up.
The rest of the
week
on
LTE
the whole time. Yeah, we thought we were good the next day at our venue, but it crashed right before the first session started. We were like, okay, we'll just do LTE the whole day.
And I was in contact with both of the venues, and this is something important, I think, for people to take away from this that do events or event planning, or even if you're another production person or something. It seems to me, in my experience, that most of the venues now that are managing internet are wall out only, which means they only take care of the internet from the plug in the wall to where it plugs in for you.
Yes.
So they're having to call a centralized service provider to reroute ports and to figure out what's going on. And they don't have a ton of control at the venue level. That's kind of scary, man, because that's not a fast process, right? They get put in a queue. They have to wait, like, to talk to an operator. They have to go through a series of checks and tests before you can actually solve something. And actually, I think one of those venues was unresolved. The other one, I had been talking to the guy for, 3 days, and I think the next week, it was the following week, because they went back to that same venue on the 12th, and we ran on LTE again. But he called me prior to, and he goes, "Oh, I figured it out. We had created a VLAN or something, and I had just put you guys on the wrong port." And I was like, okay, well, we had talked about like trying different ports and unplugging and I thought I was for sure that you guys were just getting packet loss from bad cabling or something. But man, test that stuff and test it again. If they tell you, oh, it's fine, we just used it yesterday, I don't care.
Yeah, still test it.
Still test it.
The other one too is, like the hotel that we were at, the AV crew that we were interfacing with, they were talking about how the hotel stopped managing internet completely.
Yeah.
So it was not even like the hotel's IT team. It was a third party that came in, and they just were very hands off.
Yeah. They don't want to mess with it, man. And also that's I feel like a tough situation for them, because if you're, a salaried guy or an hourly guy working for an AV company, and now you're responsible for the internet that you have no control over, nobody wants to be in that situation. So I have some empathy for those guys, Oh, did we lose you, Trae? Trae, if you lost internet in the middle of this, I'm going to lose my mind. That would be the craziest thing. You back?
I'm back.
See, this is, I don't know how much more timely that could be. I thought you lost internet, but you had a cam link that's worked for you for how long?
I don't think I've turned it off in like 6 months.
That's what I'm saying. This is like such a beautiful real world example of what happens here. So you got to have a backup, and you do. And so we're fine. So I don't know who gets to watch the first half of this and who gets to watch the second half, but the first half was Trae on a really nice camera, and now he's going to be on this, because this is what we're talking about, the testing and then having a backup in place. So I'm glad you're back.
No one ever sees the side of my office. It's not as clean.
I know. They're like, geez, what a dump. No, it's a beautiful space. You can see the door to the studio's open. Is that the bathroom or the studio? That's the studio? No, it's the bathroom behind you.
That's the bathroom.
I'm glad the door's shut.
Me too.
So basically what we were saying is don't listen to what anybody tells you about it worked yesterday. And this is a perfect example of that. This worked yesterday. Trae just lost connectivity. It didn't work today. It happened right in the middle.
I mean, I've been connected for an hour.
Yeah, just keep testing. So that was crazy, right? So we had two events. Both had to go to LTE. The event after that had to go to LTE. It's super uncommon. but it happens. So have those backups in place, have some redundancies, and always test, no matter what anybody tells you about how great their system is or whatever.
Yeah.
The second thing, I think I would say, I know we had a couple of things to talk about, but we had a client come off of a really bad experience earlier in the year at an event, and they were really gun shy about an event. And this goes into like the levels of service conversation. Mm-hmm. They were like real just AV's the worst. I hate having to do this. This is terrible. And then you and Brandon and Sergio were on site and gave them a really great experience, and I got a glowing review from them. I don't know if I told you like the whole debrief, but the idea that AV is last in line, production is last in line. It's the last thing you think about typically for your event. It's kind of the last thing anybody wants to put a ton of thought into. But man, it makes or breaks it, and I'm real happy that was such a good event, and I'm really excited that you guys gave them such a high level of service that they were just over the moon. It was great.
Well, and the crazy thing is, having been there, it didn't feel like it was crazy level of service, right?
Yeah.
Like it was our normal service.
Yeah.
We were just really communicative with them.
Yeah.
And they had a couple of last minute requests that we were able to fulfill. And we were like kind and, we weren't assholes.
But I'm telling you, from the phone call I had, you would have thought that you guys hung the moon. I mean, they were absolutely just ecstatic about the whole thing. So the other thing that we did there that was really great for us, and it's something we've talked about before, is that we were able to work with the on-site team because they had an in-house AV provider. And I reached out to them prior because they had an event going on before we got there, and we were able to utilize some of their equipment that was already built that was spec'd higher than what this client had budgeted for that event. So by us being able to liaise with them and talk about like, hey, if you've already got this stuff on the ground, you want to leave it set up, we'll pay for it.
Oh, they were extremely excited because they didn't have to bring in a crew to tear everything down. Oh. And when we finished, they were able to set up for their next show.
Yeah.
Like with very minimal effort.
Win-win, So that's another thing. Happy. Like if you're bringing in outside AV, we've talked about this before, make sure that they're talking to the in-house guys too, because there's a lot of good a mojo that can happen there between the two, So that was a huge win for us. That was a really great event. And it felt good. What else?
I feel like that ties in, I think Brown was the one, like maybe it was a month ago when we were talking, he was talking about over communicating and just how communication is key. Yeah. And really that's what that event showcased was both for the hotel that we were working with and for the client. Like we were just talking to them and letting them know what was happening, and we walked away and everyone was extremely happy. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're going to do another one next year and at the same venue, and everyone will be happy.
Oh, good. Because they weren't, I know that they had some issues with the venue prior to. I didn't know that they were going to go back there, but I know they do about 4 of these a year. I guess that brings up another one that we had the same week, that this was an overlap with that event. So this was in the second week of June because we had 3 events. We had 3 events the first week, 3 events the second week, and they all overlapped. Nate was at one that was it's for a client that we've had for a long time, but they're kind of a volunteer-run organization, and the volunteer that's in charge of their continuing ed right now is like pretty animated guy. And he's also like really wants to push the envelope of what this stuff is. So they have like a fairly standard schema for how these things run, and he's just kind of blown it apart, which is awesome, but their budgets don't reflect that. And, our ability to have additional people and labor on site doesn't reflect that.
And it's very last minute.
It's very last minute. And so
like day of last minute. And that's very stressful for everybody involved.
Dude, it's crazy. So
it goes back to a lack of communication.
Yeah. So Nate did a phenomenal job because he was able to just kind of not only meet but exceed all these demands, I'll call them, to get this stuff done, and built out this really extensive platform to trigger video cues, to be able to pull stuff down on the fly as he was asking for, like real time, like, hey, pull this clip. He'd go to the internet, pull the clip, scrape it, load it in, trigger it. Like pretty cool and pretty seamless, especially for one guy because he was switching for broadcast, switching for the room, triggering video playback. Then he's monitoring audio because we did have an audio guy there and a camera guy, but we didn't have an A2. We didn't have somebody managing PowerPoints. We didn't have it was 3 guys running the whole show because that's what was budgeted for the show, but they did the job of 6 guys. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, they really killed it.
So big win. So I guess my point to everybody out there on this one would be, first of all, Nate's awesome. Second of all, be appreciative
awesome.
when you see some stuff like that and know that the things that you think might be small asks are potentially pretty big asks. It may seem like not a big deal to go find a video and pull it down, but when you're in the middle of a live show and a broadcast and a room full of people and all this stuff, it's kind of a big deal to ask somebody who has a very specific job, who's trying to manage that job to do that real time, and he did it really well. So I think the last thing that I want to talk about in June, before we get to some meat and potato stuff just about events, we'll maybe take 15 minutes to do that, but is sometimes technology, we've just talked about all the ways that you can be prepared, you can test, you can do all this stuff to make sure that your technology is on point and great. But what happens when you overshoot something and technology gets in your way, right? Because that happened. We had to send somebody out this last week to an out-of-town gig that we didn't have a ton of information on. We actually didn't even get to run a show till the morning of before we went live. Mm-hmm. We had very little information on the venue, but it's one of those government contracts where you kind of just have to be there when it's time to go. And we put together what we thought was a pretty robust platform for it, but it may have been more than what was required there, and at points it kind of got in the way. And it's not that the event, I don't feel like it necessarily suffered. I feel like we got through it. I think it made it a lot more stressful for us than anything.
Yeah, I mean, we were still able to deliver a great product.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, way more stressful than it needed to be.
So stressful. I mean, I was up here at 6 a.m. every morning, trying to get online and troubleshoot and test, and the person that was on site was definitely stressed, and it was like an all-day really stressful thing, especially for a single tech. To produce something like that was tough. So I guess that goes back to the communication thing, just really try to communicate your needs and what they are, and don't wait till the day of to let us know what we're supposed to do, because it's hard to spec for that. It's hard to produce like that. So but yeah, so I mean, we're now on the 3rd week of June, and we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 events in with the virtuals.
Yeah,
pretty crazy. And then you guys are going to this huge one, which is basically taking our whole staff. So we have to turn business down through next week because it's too much to manage. And then we get going again here in early July. So
yeah, we have a couple of big shoots. End of June. I mean, we here in Houston, we have a couple of big shoots end of June, early July.
Yeah.
If they happen. Everything's so weather dependent here.
Yeah.
Because these are on-site single camera shoots that are weather dependent.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk. I want to bring some of this back in for people that are watching then, because, it's great to hear what we're doing.
One big thing is you guys have kind of finished or almost finished your podcast studios.
Yeah, it's 90% here in Austin. I think just getting the lighting completed. We actually had a walkthrough yesterday. We had a client that is already an existing client that was interested in using it.
Yeah, how'd that
go? We went ahead and had them come in and check it out, and they were blown away. So I'm so excited to unveil that once it's done. But we got to get those tracks up, that Manfrotto system up on the ceiling. Everything else is done. The wiring's all in place. Everything else is there. The audio works great. It's we got some nice furniture and lighting in there, up lighting and stuff. So it's going to be a really cool space. I'm excited to start using it. I'm excited to start using it for us. I don't even care about clients coming in. I want to get in there. But so to bring this back home, I think this is a good thing to talk about, because this is a lot of on-site stuff this week, and you were actually on a bunch of these on-site events. And this is a good thing on the heels of the DXP interview to talk about how to really make your events get that added value, right? How do you make them more than just the on-site, right? How is it just more than just the 200 to 5,000 people in the room?
Yeah.
How do you carry that throughout the year? How do you leverage that event into marketing and into transparency into a bunch of other stuff. And so we do that in a couple of ways. One is obviously the capture, right? Because you're capturing all this stuff, whether it's educational content or keynote presentations. You've got content that's just there, right? You've planned it. You put it all together. Why just have it for the people in the room? Capture that stuff, utilize it throughout the year. The second thing, and this is what I wanted to ask you about because it's always really interesting to me to see these videos get made, but doing some behind the scenes stuff and some real time video production on B-roll and kind of what goes into putting an event together and capturing some candid moments.
Yeah.
You're really good at because, we sometimes bring in contractors and stuff to do this too, but you're really good at building those out. And I'm curious if you have, I've never asked you this, but do you have a kind of set way you do that? Or is it client dependent and venue dependent? Or are you like, I know I want an exterior drone shot. I know I want time lapse. I know I want this. I know how do you go about putting together a really fantastic sizzle reel for an event?
Yeah, I do have at this point I do kind of have a set idea of how I want it, because I think of it as a story, so I want people to be introduced to the setting and where we're at. So I like to have an exterior or two. I like to showcase if it's in a cool city, hey, we're not just at this hotel, we're in Nashville or we're in Denver, we're in Austin, somewhere, because that's a big deal. And then you want to showcase what is the event, and I like to do that using the in-room or the in-person graphics to make it feel more tactile.
I got you.
To kind of let people, my hope is you're watching and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm there. It feels like you've actually arrived and gotten in there. Yeah. And then you can showcase the event. If the event if they want audio included in it, then it's cool to layer in a couple of speakers, so you can kind of get one or two audio cues about oh, this is really great. It was really fun to listen to. I like to show the audience so that people can see oh no, there's people there. This is a cool thing to be at. Subconsciously, hopefully it cues them. Yeah. Maybe I should go to this next year.
Yeah.
Or at least I should be curious about going. And then also, if there's time, I like to include people at the event speaking about how much fun they had. If they actually had fun.
Testimonial action, sure.
Because I think that's really important for people to both see it and to hear it. And then there's always cool mixers with good food and cool activities. And I like to showcase that. So it's it's not just being there to hear the content, which you can hear online usually, but it's it's important to be there so you can make those social connections.
Yeah, now you can trigger the FOMO in everybody that didn't show up.
Yeah. So that is my script. That's my story I like to tell each time. And then I just kind of build it out with the shots that I see when I'm there.
I'll tell you my favorite instance of that is what we did last year in Austin, where we shot on build day, right? So it was them setting up and doing everything, and then immediately turn that around.
Oh,
and
yeah.
By 6 o'clock in the evening, they were pushing it out to social.
That's great. That's really fun.
I think they got another 40 registrations or something, just from pushing that out. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Because people are oh, it's happening. And it's you see all the stuff, all the pieces going together and everything happening.
And it looks cool, right? Because it's oh, it's a same day professional edit. And people are oh, that looks awesome.
It looked awesome. And then it was, shooting over the next 2 days to fill in the gaps and then taking that from the beginning, adding it to it and giving them something post-event to push out, which I think is huge because it gives you, again, it's marketing for your next event. It also helps to reinforce a little bit of loyalty to people that were there. They see themselves and go, oh, that was really fun. I want to do that again.
Yeah.
If you didn't see it, if you didn't go, you're man, I really missed out on that. There's just so much power in having those images put together in a professional way, which brings me to my next point. What if you don't have that? And this is something that I recently saw too. It was actually from one of these events where the client, they have a small in-house marketing team, communications team. And they were filming some setup stuff and just some random shots on an iPhone and then posting it later in the day.
Yeah.
But it
They didn't polish it. They didn't polish it.
So flat, and it just looked flat, and it looked unappealing, and it didn't make you want to be there. It was just kind of like, oh, okay. It was like you're peeking into somebody's Photos app, and like seeing what they shot. And I was like,
yeah,
why would you not just go live? Go live. And then if it's a bunch of junk, it's whatever, but the urgency is there, and it was live, and it still stays in your timeline. It still stays in your feed.
Yeah.
But at least you were live. And so like maybe have one person ready to say something on camera, maybe like line up a couple of shots and then just go live and go, oh man, look, they're putting the badges together, guys. We're getting ready to go. Or like, hey, the AV guys are building out the room. Do that. But just shooting a couple of random flat shots on your phone and then uploading it, man, it was.
Well, I think from a strategic point too, what that makes me think of is how important it is even for, brands that don't think of themselves as having a personality,
right?
To have a personality to promote it, because you have to have someone who's comfortable going live.
Yeah.
And you kind of, I almost feel like that's a requirement these days. You have to build that into your team.
Yeah.
So that you can do that, because if you're not going to polish it with a edit,
or
and you do go live, like you have to be able to be like, hey, I am the person from this organization. This is what we're doing.
Sure.
And so I do. That's funny. I think that is a requirement these days. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like,
I mean, I don't disagree. It's funny because, especially we've had this come up a lot. So especially with the smaller organizations, like you may have a 4,000 or 5,000 member organization that's run by 3 people. It's hard to do that. Now, when you're a big oil and gas company or a healthcare company, not as hard to do that.
But also, you want to shy away from it because you don't want one person tied to your brand.
Well, you also don't want that person's voice to be the voice of your brand, and that's a scary thing. But, we've had it honestly to the point where someone told us not to put up lights on the curtains, which looked awesome, on the drape. They didn't want up lights on the drape, which looked great in the video. It looked great on the broadcast. It looked great in the room. But because their on-staff communications person was shooting on an iPhone, they couldn't adjust exposure properly. And so their iPhone photos were not coming out good for them to post to social.
Yeah.
So they sacrificed everything else to make sure those iPhone photos came out okay. I mean, that's, it seems counterintuitive to me, but it's like you got to find a balance here. If you can't hire professionals to do that content gathering and that content generation, you got to figure out a way to either, like I said, go live with it.
Wait, so I'm sorry, I'm catching up to this story. They chose not to have uplights.
Yeah, they're probably watching this though, so I don't want to throw them under the bus. But actually, she doesn't. I don't think that woman works there anymore. So, maybe
but like they were afraid of the dynamic range of the iPhone not being able to capture.
That's correct.
The curtains, and so they were like, "Hey, turn the uplights off so we can take iPhone photos."
We had done a couple of iterations of production for them. They were all travel gigs, right? So typically we can't travel with lights, up lights. If we're like these were fly gigs, right? Where one was in Canada. They're like always in these kind of austere locations.
Yeah.
And so they're fly gigs, and so we're trying to stay super nimble and light. And we're typically not doing the AV. We're only doing capture and broadcast. And they were asking about, how can we up the production value? Because typically speaking, these looked pretty flat. They're typically from like a conference room with a beige wall background. They weren't doing pipe and drape, and we're just filming for 3 days and broadcasting for 3 days because there's a bunch of people getting accreditation by watching it live.
Yeah.
So we were at a venue, and I said, get pipe and drape this time. And they ordered the pipe and drape. And the guy there, I was like, you have an uplight package? He was like, yep. I said, I'm going to sub it from you. And so we sub-rented it from him. We put it up, and they were like, it looks awesome. The room looks, it was like your standard thing, but they had never done it before. So they were like, oh, this looks amazing. The room looks so much better. Well, then the person who was taking the pictures was super upset because they couldn't get the photos right because the blue uplights were ruining the exposure on the iPhone. And so they were like, yeah, we're never doing uplights again. I was like, okay. I was like, beige wall it is, like we'll just go with that.
That's so funny. Well, and it also, I mean, that's the power of not knowing your tool.
Yeah.
Right? Because really they needed to go into some form of their phone camera, their iPhone camera, that allows you to manually adjust that.
Yes, you can adjust those things, but whatever.
Yeah,
that's neither here nor there. I think what I'm really getting
the point. I feel like the point is, if you're spending however much your budget is to put on an event, it's probably worth a small percentage of that to capture it so that you can share it with people.
Correct. That is the end. That's the takeaway from today's discussion. Like, you're spending all of this money and all of this time to put these events together. You're bringing in all these people to help you plan them. You've got committees, you've got, board members, you've got presenters, you've got keynote speakers, you've got all this marketing behind this event, and you want to make sure that you're doing a really good job to capture the essence of that event, to get people excited about that event, and to utilize that to push and leverage some marketing further down the road for you, whether it's for the next event, whether it's just to show some transparency for your organization for what you do. Like, you owe it to your members, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your organization to take a little bit of effort and capture that and showcase the good work that you're doing. It'll pay off in spades.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you owe it. Yeah, you owe it to everybody.
That's it.
And you owe it to the event, I feel like.
I mean, I feel like a broken record that we say this so much, but it is, and I understand the difficulty for people who, again, have those small staffs. It's a difficult thing to wrap your head around when you are responsible for so many things. You've got a food and beverage order, you've got a room block, you've got to facilitate all this travel. Like, you don't want to think about having to capture B-roll. You don't want to think about bringing a photographer in. You don't want to think about any of that stuff. It's the last thing on your mind. But man, those are the most important things when you're next year and you're like, how do we market this better? Well, if you would have captured some stuff, you could market it better. You could showcase the good work you're doing. So it's really about being proactive and thinking through that stuff, thinking about, like, what is it that you want to show your members? What is it you want to show potential attendees? What are the goals of the event, and how do you work that in? And if you're working with a good production company and a good AV company, they can help steer you in the right direction, because these things do not add a lot of additional cost. I mean, I think we are case in point for that, specifically because when you're on staff, Trae, like when you're there to work an event, you bring a B-roll kit and you're shooting. So if you're not actively mixing a room or actively having to change stuff out, or if you have a break, you're up on that rig and you're shooting for them. Yeah. And people should do that. You should do it every time.
It's easier than you think.
Yeah. Just hire Audion. I don't know. We should make these all commercials.
I mean, we don't want to say it. I mean, we do want to say it, but we don't. I don't know.
Well, look, long story short, long month, crazy month, a lot of adversity overcome. Always test your equipment. Don't listen to anybody if they tell you it worked yesterday or it worked last week. Make sure you test it again. Make sure that you're...
That's me looking at my camera.
It just happened, I know. Make sure you're communicating, over-communicate, which I really like you said that. Like, sometimes you just need to over-communicate to make sure that everybody's getting what they need. Make sure the technology doesn't get in the way, that it's there to support. And then, man, use these events to your advantage. Use them. Like, we can talk another time about how to monetize all this stuff, but for now, just really use it to leverage the good work that you're doing and all the hard work that you put in, and to help you market and prepare for the next one. Like, I think it is easier than you think. And I would say this, as I say at the end of these minis, but like, anybody who's watching this or who felt like you got anything from it, or if you have questions or you're confused, we're always happy to talk about this stuff. Yeah. And I feel like anybody who's worth their salt in the industry is willing to talk about this stuff. So
usually we like to overtalk.
I mean, 100%. That's all I want to do all day long. If I could just do this, if we could just leave this live channel up and I didn't have to do any work.
Imagine if people could just like pop in and ask us questions. You'd be like, great. I'm here.
I would just stay on.
I'm here
all
for
time.
you.
This is what I would do for my job. It would be amazing. Well, look, I know you got some packing to do. I got some stuff to deal with today. I'm excited to see you guys in Nashville. I wish I was going, but I'll be here holding down the fort.
Thank you for doing servers. That. Yeah. Thank you for watching the servers.
You know, that's what I tell everybody I'm doing. I don't know, eat some hot chicken for me, man.
I'm not going to. I'm going to let all the younger guys do that. I'm going to stay away from the hot chicken.
Yeah, it's a good call.
I'm going to go for the medium chicken.
Yeah.
The mild chicken.
Yeah. All right, dude. I'm gonna get up out of here. It's always fun talking. Let's do it again next Friday.
All right. You ready?
All right, man.
You ready?
Yeah.
Oh. Office. That's it. We're out of here. Bye.